with President Trump continuing to outright question the patriotism of 4 minority Democratic congresswomen whom he told to go back to their countries, declaring them irredeemable, and now to destroy the United States. Trump tweeted Sunday morning, quote, "I don't believe the 4 congresswomen are capable of loving our country. They should apologize to America and Israel for the horrible, hateful things they have said. They are destroying the Democrat Party, but are weak and insecure people who can never destroy our great nation." Also this weekend, President Trump shared a defense of the "send her back" tweets from a far-right British commentator who in the past linked a rabbi's pro-migrant work to the mass shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. On Saturday, Trump shared a tweet by Katie Hopkins, who wrote in part, "Send her back is the new lock her up." Trump also shared 3 other tweets by Hopkins, who, after a terrorist attack in May of 2017 at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, England, tweeted, "We need a final solution, Manchester." And who, after the mass shooting last year at the Tree of Life synagogue that left 11 people dead, wrote, "Look to the chief rabbi and his support for mass migration across the Med. There you will find your truths." It is unclear whether Trump was aware of the background of Hopkins. The White House did not respond to the New York Times request for comment. And so, meanwhile, in a move reminiscent of his flip-flopping on statements on the racist violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, back in 2017, President Trump pulled back from criticism of his rally for his rallygoers chanting "Send her back" about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. The president declined to call the chant racist or even stand by his claim on Thursday that he was not happy with it.
President Trump, you said you were not happy with the chant. However, the chant was just repeated.
No, you know what I'm unhappy with? You know what I'm unhappy with? I'm unhappy with the fact that a congresswoman can hate our country. That's what I'm unhappy with. Those people in North Carolina, that stadium was packed. It was a record crowd, and I could have filled it 10 times, as you know. Those are incredible people. Those are incredible patriots. But I'm unhappy when a congresswoman goes and said, "I'm going to be the president's nightmare." She's going to be the president's nightmare. She's lucky to be where she is. Say it.
The chant "Send her home."
No, you know what's racist to me? When somebody goes out and says the horrible things about our country, the people of our country, that are anti-Semitic, that hate everybody, that speak with scorn and hate, that, to me, is really a very dangerous thing.
Listen, I agree completely, and I'm glad that Donald Trump is finally into self-confession because, of course, we know he said several anti-Semitic things throughout his political career. Of course, I remember back during the heat of the campaign, the presidential campaign, he sent out an anti-racist tweet, retweeted one with Hillary Clinton with dollar signs, talking about her being controlled by Jewish money. And my gosh, all the hatred that he spewed out about America, talking about American carnage, and talking about the American dream being dead, and on, saying America was crippled. I was deeply offended by that. I am glad that Donald Trump finally is reflecting and understands that his sort of language is just not acceptable anymore. Jonathan Lemire, it's not like this isn't as predictable as the Red Sox losing 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles in an important stretch. And I guess, you know what? Listen, we won a World Series last year, so why in the hell would we want to win one again this year? Good job, Dombrowski. Great pitchers. I'm sorry, that's all I'll say there. But while we were watching the Red Sox blow the game, we were actually talking, this was Friday, I guess. We were predicting what was going to happen. That, like Charlottesville, he condemns and then he backs up. And then he condemns and he backs up and backs up. He did exactly what you said he was going to do this weekend, just like he did with Charlottesville. And it reminds me also of right before Super Tuesday when he said he would not condemn the Ku Klux Klan because he knew nothing about them, didn't know David Duke. And then he said it was an earpiece. And then I mean, this is what he does all the time. But he usually ends up on the most racist position possible. And that's what he's done here, too. And by the way, he's turned it up. He's turned it up a notch. The racism and the hatred and the nativism and the xenophobia. Make no mistake, this isn't just this isn't Groundhog's Day. This is a new level of racism and hatred. Brought to you by Donald Trump and the Republicans who enable him.
All right, the president's use of the word nightmare there certainly could be applied to the Red Sox pitching staff, Joe, but we'll set that aside.
Yes, certainly could.
You're right. We spoke a few days ago and sort of saw this coming. It's very similar to what he did in Charlottesville. Let's flash back to August 2017. In the hours after Charlottesville, he spoke at his golf course at Bedminster and blamed the violence on people on both sides of that altercation. After 24, 48 hours of a media firestorm about it, I was part of the traveling press pool during that stretch. They whisked us to the White House, taking him off of his vacation so he could give a statement there from the White House with the backdrop of the grand setting there, and saying that, you know, it was a much more measured teleprompter reading, saying that no, of course, you know, and he condemned the white supremacists. Only the very next day, again, after watching the media coverage of the flip-flop, after hearing from Republicans who expressed concern, but also those who didn't, noting who was talking, who wasn't, consulting his informal advisors after hours, suddenly held a press conference at Trump Tower and went back to his original position. Because there's one thing that this president hates to be seen as doing, and that's caving to pressure. The idea of that he is responding to what other people are upset about, that whether it's lawmakers and media commentators. He cannot handle the idea of look like he's been pushed into a corner. He returns to his first instinct, and we saw that here again. Look, we've all seen the video clip from the rally from North Carolina. He did nothing to stop that chant. He soaked in the chant. Only after some concern expressed by Republicans, after watching some of the media, he walked it back. He sort of expressed that he wished that chant hadn't happened. But then he ended up back where he started. First of all, we know he doesn't ever want to criticize his base, and he was clearly concerned that it looked like he was criticizing the rally-goers in North Carolina. That's first and foremost. He doesn't want to ever upset them, but he also doesn't want to be seen as giving in. And he also, as a final point, still wants to have this fight. He still wants to make these congresswomen of color be his opposition, be his foil for now, eventually to the Democratic nominee. But right now, he wants to have this white identity racial fight, and that tweet, the tweet yesterday, the language that's really striking is this. He said, I don't believe the 4 congresswomen are capable of loving our country. Well, Mr. President, what makes them, Mr. President, what makes them not capable? That's the question.
Well, they're not white. First of all, it clearly is suggesting that they're not white, they're foreign, even though they're not. And also, very interesting in that presser, when the president, they're just lucky to be where they are. That's Donald Trump saying, you know what, given that they're women and they're from Somalia or they're from wherever, Detroit, or they're from Cincinnati, regardless, they're just lucky to be where they are. So, Eddie, I want to read you something from Gary Kasparov. And he wrote a column yesterday, and it was really important because he said, I've been warning you guys since 2016. This is what totalitarians do, and they keep amping it up bit by bit. And Gary's exactly right. This is taking it to a new level. But he said in his column for the New York Daily News, Trump feeds the mob, and the mob feeds Trump. Demagogues don't find radicals to lead. They radicalize their followers, one outrage at a time. And as Mr. Kasparov wrote, Donald Trump is taking them even farther now. And every time they don't respond, every time they don't condemn, it becomes normalized and then allows him to go one step further with his racism, one step further with his demagoguery, one step further with his xenophobia. And it appears